Hello and welcome to Board Game TV. We're continuing our history of Ghost Rider and comics, and we are on Series 3, and this is my second video of it, and we're going to be finishing Series 3 with this video. Series 3, this first part, was written by Daniel Way. Daniel Way would leave the book. Jason Aaron would come on the book on issue 20 and finish up the series with issue 35. And then he would write Ghost Riders, Heaven's on Fire, issue 1 through 6, to continue the storyline that he starts with his run. Now, Jason Aaron, I think, was relatively new at the time. I had never heard of him. He has gone on to do bigger and become one of the industry's top critically acclaimed comic book writers in this era so far. And he kind of reminds me a little bit of Garth Ennis. I'm not saying he's a carbon copy of him or anything, but his writing style, he just kind of reminds me a little bit of it. The dark humor, the jab at superheroes and religion and stuff like that. He just reminds me of him somewhat. Now, Saltaires and Tex would leave, and Roland Boschi would start on issue 20 and go through issue 23. And his art is okay. It's decent. But it cannot, I mean, you can't compare anybody's art to Saltaires and Tex for Ghost Rider. You just can't. So, the art to me was a step down, but, you know, I was sad. I was very sad that Saltaires and Tex left. It was disappointing, but, you know, they were on for, you know, freaking 19 issues. So, you know, in comic book world, that's actually really, really good. And then, I hope I pronounce this right, Tan Eng Hoyt, he would take the reins from 24 to issue 32. And then Tony Moore would take issues 33 to 35. And then Roland Boschi would come back and do the art for Heaven's on Fire, issues 1 through 6. All the art on there is good, decent to good. It fits the style of the book. It's not terrible art. It's good art. It's just nowhere near the level of Saltaires and Tex. So when Aaron first got on the book and I saw the art change and the first story arc with Aaron, I was really disappointed. As a matter of fact, I was kind of upset. I was like, oh my God, here we go. This is going to be another Ivan Valdez Jr. The art on the book's getting worse. It's going to get progressively worse, and the story is going to go to hell, and it's going to be a terrible book, and then it's going to get canceled. Because I was not a fan of Jason Aaron's first story arc on his run, to be honest with you. I was really scared and disappointed by it, and I really thought that the book was going to go the way of Ivan Valdez's run on Series 2 and end up being canceled. Now, I could not be more wrong, but I actually thought that, and I was upset. And I didn't like his first run because his first little story arc basically is kind of Johnny Blaze is looking for a way to try to get to heaven, and there's a whole bunch of gun-toting fighting nurses guarding a secret to get to heaven. At a hospital, you have a stretch of road haunted by cannibal ghost zombies, and a cop named Kowalski who gets captured by a killer and his hand cut off. And all kind of merging into one, and it plays silly, and it plays like one of those 70s grindhouse B-movie type of movies, and I know that's what he was going for, and it was a total shift in tone compared to Daniel Way's serious take on the book. Yes, Daniel Way had some dark humor, but the take on the book was the tone on the book was dark and serious, while Jason Aaron's first arc was silly and outrageous and not too serious at all. And I remember reading it and going, God, and I got nuns. I mean, not nuns. I'll keep saying nuns because they will come up. I got a squad of gun-toting nurses and jeeps chasing Ghost Rider around and shooting up places, and I got these stupid ghost zombies eating folks on this road, and it all merges into one, and it was just, I didn't really care for it. I did not. The only really thing of importance that is introduced in this storyline is a villain called the Deacon, who's basically a preacher who kills people in the name of the Lord, kills sinners, but he's like a big dude, so he physically can mess people up. And Kowalski, who would later on become the new Vengeance. Other than that, Dan Ketch kind of stays in the shadows in this series, doesn't really do much, and it's just Johnny trying to look for a way to get to heaven and really not finding it, because he's trying to go after Zakidel, or however you pronounce it. I'm not good with pronouncing names. So I was really worried at this point in time that this series was going to take a dive real quick. But then his second story arc started, and all of a sudden it became, it ended up being one of the greatest Ghost Rider runs of the whole entire history of Ghost Rider. I mean, I was on the edge of my seat every month. I couldn't wait for another issue, and it is one of my particular favorite runs. I mean, it's either one or two, depending on what day of the week it is. You know, in the first series, my favorite one was the end with Roger Stern and J.M. DeMatteis. And the second series, my favorite run was the first 2 years of Howard Mackie. And in this series, my favorite run is the last 2/3 of Aaron's run, and it is up there with those. I mean, it's on any given day I could still like that run or Howard Mackie's first 2-year run. It is so fantastic, and it is so good, and it is full of fan service. If you were a fan of Ghost Rider from the beginning, from your youth, and had collected Ghost Rider throughout the years, he provides so much fan service. You look at every panel and see all the fan service he puts in all these little details here and there, and all these little nuggets he drops. He did his homework, and it was fantastic. And he also came up with a way to kind of clear up Ghost Rider's continuity problem that was really actually pretty good. And so you don't have a big continuity problem with Ghost Rider anymore. Maybe a little bit with the whole Zarathos thing still, but not much, not really. He found a way to do it. And that story arc starts with issue 26. And we're introduced to several new characters. First of all, Sister Sarah. Sister Sarah is a nun training at a nunnery, and she is the granddaughter of Caretaker. And she gets called, she leaves the nunnery to go find Caretaker because he's calling to her that he needs her. Caretaker makes his return in this book, and it's a welcome return. And basically, Dan Ketch forms a team to go try to capture Caretaker, because Caretaker has this storehouse of all the information on all the Ghost Riders ever, and he has a bunch of artifacts and memorabilia from other Ghost Rider comics, and it's so great. So Dan forms a team And you're gonna like this, of Death Ninja, who was a villain in Ghost Rider 2nd series that was around for a couple issues and forgotten about. Blackout, the orb. Now this is not the same orb from series 1. This is a new orb. I imagine the guy from series 1 is dead or something, but this guy was born with a big eyeball deformity on his head, and he's a goofball. He really is. He's silly, a goofball. He's the butt of jokes, and he has like laser guns and stuff like that. And he's kind of funny. He's kind of a jab at the old first series lameness of villains. And the last one is Doghead, who was a villain, one of Blackheart's Spirits of Vengeance villains from the 2nd series from Valdez's run. So this team goes to try to kill or capture Caretaker so Danny can get some of the knowledge that he needs out of there. And of course Caretaker kills Death Ninja and Doghead pretty easily. The orb gets really wounded, and Blackout basically mortally wounds Caretaker in a way. Blackout gets beat, but Caretaker's mortally wounded. Dan Ketch gets some of the information and flees right when Johnny Blaze shows up. And Johnny Blaze shows up at the same time as Caretaker's granddaughter, Sister Sarah. If you don't get that. 2 mules for Sister Sarah. So Aaron's a big Eastwood fan. And Caretaker passes along all his knowledge to her. And basically she becomes the new Caretaker. And Caretaker dies. And Caretaker in heaven is quickly dispatched by Zacadel for betraying him. And the way they kind of retcon the history is that Caretaker had been lying. He'd been working for Heaven this whole time and guarding the true secret of the Ghost Rider and Ghost Riders. And he had basically been lying the whole time to Danny and Johnny about the true origins of their powers and what they are and where their powers come from. The whole medallion of power thing is kind of shown to be a kind of a lie. If you're a diehard Howard Mackey fan and truly like that medallion of power origin, yeah, this is going to tick you off a little bit, but this does, in the long run, this is better. This corrects things. The whole Noble Kale thing gets kind of fixed a little bit. Like I said, a little bit. It doesn't, clear up the whole Zarathos thing. But basically, the whole thing was I think I said it in my first video that the Ghost Riders were weapons of heaven to come and serve justice on the earth. And there's always been Ghost Riders throughout the ages. And usually one for each different country and that kind of stuff. And they were weapons of heaven to help bring justice about. And Johnny Blaze and Dan Ketch are kind of parts of this as well. And so the whole medallion of power thing is really kind of lying. Now you can sit there and say that Johnny Blaze's soul was grafted with Zarathos because he did make a deal with the devil, and the devil can do that. So Zarathos took center stage in the first series. And you can say that the Ghost Rider that possessed Danny Ketch in the second series was Noble Kale. But then they make out that Noble Kale was actually a Ghost Rider in colonial times. And that kind of thing. So it's a little bit wonky, but it does clear a lot of things, because at this point in time, with all the different riders and takes on it, Ghost Rider continuity was starting to get really muddled. I mean, really, really muddled. And this kind of clears it up a lot. So, so basically now Ghost Rider, Johnny Blaze doesn't have Zarathos in him. He has the power of the true power of the Ghost Rider, which is an angel. Of course, Dan Ketch is being fed powers of the Ghost Rider by Zacadel, which is kind of a different type of power. And they kind of differentiate this during this series because for a lot of it, Dan Ketch has a blue flame around his head, while Johnny Blaze has a, the typical fire around his head. So that kind of fixes things. And then we're also, Lieutenant Baldino makes an appearance. I guess he's no longer Vengeance, and he has Blaze's shotgun. And basically, the Kowalski guy kind of wants to get revenge on Ghost Rider, and he finds out about Baldino and buys the shotgun from him. Because Baldino seems like he's kind of strung out a little bit. He's not like living in a rat-infested apartment and drinking all the time. He's just not the same anymore. He's not a cop anymore. And so Kowalski gets the shotgun from him, and it works. It shoots hellfire for Kowalski. Because Kowalski was kind of touched by the Ghost Rider in the first story arc. And so the basic crux of this story arc is that there's only a couple Ghost Riders left because Danny has basically got them all. They end up going to Tibet through a portal and trying to chase Danny, and Johnny Blaze and I think Sarah and I think 3 or 4 other Ghost Riders. There's like a Islamic one, like a Baron Zamdi type one, a Hindu one, and there's another one. Make a last stand against Dan Ketch, who Zacadel lends him a host of his Black Angels, and there's this big fight. And in the end, basically what happens is all the other Ghost Riders are killed. Danny basically takes the power from Johnny, so he drains Johnny of the power of the Ghost Rider, and then Danny gives all the power to Zacadel, and Zacadel uses that power to bust open the gates of the Eternal City of Heaven and takes it over. And Dan Ketch at the very end of it figures out that he had been lied to this whole time and regrets what he did, and is able to have a few like Ghost Rider power meteorites or comets shoot from heaven onto the earth, and one hits Johnny Blaze, so Johnny Blaze gets the power of the Ghost Rider again. One hits Kowalski, and he becomes the new Vengeance. And of course Dan has the power of the Ghost Rider, and that's where the series basically ends. You get a few little cleanup issues after that, preparing you for the Heavens on Fire limited series, like Sister Sarah going back to her nunnery and finding all of the nuns dead. That deacon guy killed them, and then Johnny Blaze and fighting a villain in one issue, being told he needs to come back to be the Ghost Rider, and Dan Ketch doing basically the same thing. And so the series ends on that note. And so Heavens on Fire Ghost Riders, remember, Heavens on Fire series starts now. I don't understand why they did that. The series started right after the Ghost Rider series ended. So it's not like, okay, here the series is going to end, but in a year from now we're going to start the Heavens on Fire miniseries. It's not like that happened. It just picks up right after. And I really honestly think this could have been just the final story arc of the Ghost Rider series, and so the Ghost Rider series could have lasted longer. I mean, they advertised right in the back of the last issue of Ghost Rider, hey, this is not the end, Heavens on Fire is coming. So I don't really understand that. I think that was a dumb decision. and it kind of confuses things, because if you're a collector going back, wait a minute, now I got all 35 issues of Ghost Rider, the third series, where's the Heavens on Fire thing? You know, you got to kind of have knowledge about that. So I think that was a kind of a mistake. But Heavens on Fire nonetheless is great as well. It like I said, it picks up right where the series ended. It could be a little longer. It felt like some of the issues were a little short. Every issue of that series has like several extra pages, but there were like reprints of old Ghost Rider comics, or a retelling of the origin of the Ghost Riders and that kind of stuff. So it felt like the series was padded out, was too short. If you condensed it all in one thing, instead of 6 issues, it would only feel like it was 4 issues. I think it should have been longer, and because the series does feel like it gets wrapped up too soon. That's one of my only few faults about Aaron's whole run. And you know, he may not have, that may not have been his decision. That may have been, you know, the Marvel editor-in-chief's decision at that time. Look, we got a 6-issue series, but we're gonna pad it out with some origin stuff and some reprints, you know, that type of thing. So I honestly think the series felt a little rushed towards the end and should have had more to it. And so that series starts basically and has plenty more fan service. Trust me, you're going to get a lot more fan service. We'll start with Blackout. Blackout is now directly working for Zacadel. Zacadel is taking over Heaven, and he tells Blackout to form up a new team to kill the Ghost Riders. So Blackout forms a new team, and he gets the Deacon, and he gets the Orb. The Orb gets healed. He gets Scarecrow. We finally get to see the return of our great Scarecrow. We get to see, he recruits Madcap. Now, if you remember anything about the second series, Madcap made like a 1-issue appearance, but it was a pretty memorable issue. And, you know, Madcap, if you don't know who he is, if he stares at you, he's immune to pain. He can't be killed, basically, and because it's some kind of chemical that instantly regenerates him, that washed over him. He has a weird origin, and he's like a B-tier villain, and he's gone crazy. He's like, life has no meaning. There's no real meaning to life. He can stab himself in the face and just instantly heal, and it won't kill him or anything like that. He can't feel the pain you inflict upon him, and when he stares at you, if he stares at you, he drives you crazy, and he runs around with a gun that blows bubbles. He looks crazy. Well, in the second series, when Ghost Rider fought him, Ghost Rider really couldn't beat him, and so Ghost Rider did the pendant stare on him, and then for the first time in like a long time, Madcap had felt pain, and he wanted more of it, and it was always, oh, we're not done yet, Ghost Rider. One day I'm coming back because you got to give me some more pain. But Howard Mackie never did anything with that. That was it. So he's brought back for this series, and it's pretty good. I liked it. It's fan service, man. It's great. We have Big Wheel and Troll the Mighty, some kind of alien life force that possesses machinery and that kind of thing. And so Blackout puts that team together to stop them. And basically what Zacadel's whole plan is to prevent prophecies from the Bible from happening. If he can do that, then he can consolidate his power and remake creation and all that kind of thing. And so the Antichrist has been born, and the Antichrist is basically a preteen kid who's the head of this corporation, and he don't make no bones about it. You know, he goes around saying, my name is Anton Shaitan. It's Czechoslovakian, but he's really the Antichrist. And so Zacadel is sending his minions to kill the Antichrist so he can screw up the whole end of the world prophecy. Well, Damien Hailstorm is gets involved, and he's trying to kill the Antichrist. And they call the Antichrist Blackheart a couple times in this book. So I think this is where Blackheart comes back. I know he appears later on in comics, and I think this is, they call him Kid Blackheart or something like that. But this other lady named Jamie Cutter, she's apparently used to be Damien's girlfriend. She's kind of satanic or occultish or whatever, and she has this gun that shoots these living bullets that can really mess people up. She's trying to protect the Antichrist because she kind of figured out what Zaccadel's doing. Her and Damien used to date. They used to be lovers, I guess. In one of his series, she was a big, what do you call them? Not a guest star, but of one of the supporting cast in his book. And they had a relationship and everything. And eventually they broke up and stuff. But she kind of convinces Damien that they got to protect the Antichrist. And of course, Dan Ketch, Sarah, and Johnny Blaze are trying to protect the Antichrist as well. And from Zaccadel killing him. And the crux of the story is that they got to find a portal to heaven. And they end up finding one at a convent where these nuns, another group of nuns that are like gun-toting trained nuns. There's a portal there, and this big fight ensues, basically. So you have the nuns open the portal, and Blaze and Ketch go into portal to heaven to confront Zaccadel. Blackheart, well, Kid Blackheart brought back Master Pandemonium. If you don't know who he is, he's a B-level villain that has like little mini demons for arms that talk and taunt him and everything. He's a goofy villain, but he can like pull demons out of his chest, so it's like his chest is a portal to hell. So, but come to find out, Sarah was a portal to heaven the whole time. So Kid Blackheart captures her and basically has Master Pandemonium pulling all these demons out of his chest, and then they're going to go in the portal to heaven through Sister Sarah, and then he's going to take over heaven and kill Zaccadel. And then, of course, meanwhile, you have a big brawl with the nuns, Hellstorm and Jamie Cutter fighting off against Vengeance and Blackout's group. And of course they have a bunch of like demon possessed people and stuff like that on their side, or angel possessed people type stuff on their side. And there's a big fight. In the end, what happens is Vengeance is beaten pretty easily by the Ghost Riders, and is captured by the nuns and to be their little guard dog to their portal to heaven. Now, this is my only other real problem with Jason Aaron's run, is I don't like this Vengeance. This Vengeance is a pale imitation, and the book even admits that, of the past Vengeance. I would love to have seen Michael Baldino come back as Vengeance. But at least Aaron brings Baldino back, and we know he's around and doing things in the Marvel Universe. But I do not like this Vengeance. This Vengeance is piss poor, and that's really one of my only few problems. Sister Sarah defeats the Deacon, and he kind of cripples him, and the Deacon and the Orb are prison mates, and the Orb is just chatting up the whole time. And you can see by the look on the Deacon's face that he's in his own private hell with the Orb being his cellmate. Hellstorm and Jamie Cutter kind of reconnect. And Johnny Blaze and Dan Ketch beat Zaccadel. And the way they do this is They say Zacadel could not ever really control the Ghost Riders. Only God could do that. And all the other Ghost Riders from the past that have ever been rise up in heaven and help Johnny Blaze and Dan Ketch beat Zacadel, because Zacadel beat him like instantly the first time they fought in heaven. But then the ghost of Roxanne and Johnny's kids encourages him and tells him, "Wait, you're not alone." And so all the Ghost Riders from the past come back to help him fight. And there are some funny freaking Ghost Riders from the past. This book is worth it alone to see some of the cool kick-ass Ghost Riders from the past. You got a redneck, one with a cowboy hat, listening to country music with brass knuckles and talking about the penance fist. You got the little newsboy one, Irish stereotype, typical one with the baseball bat. You have the kung fu one. You have, I mean, the truck driver one. I mean, oh man, an Indian, not just Hindu and Native American, but both of those. I mean, you have some really neat and interesting Ghost Riders. And man, yeah, what Aaron could have done with all that if he had been given a chance. You know, I know Marvel, after this, Marvel would take him and let him do other big, higher priority books and stuff like that. And he's kind of been big time now, and they'll never let him slum around and do another Ghost Rider series. But man, what he could have done with all these different Ghost Riders of the past, or somebody could have took the ball with that. Yeah, man, that's fantastic. It showed a lot of good ingenuity and creativity. And it's a shame we've never got anything more of that. Scarecrow and Madcap are defeated. So after Zacadel is beaten, little Kid Blackheart and his demon army storm heaven, and the Ghost Riders immediately proceed to kick his ass and his little demon army. And so little Kid Blackheart escapes, and then it shows him Blackout being kind of like his bodyguard, and they're at a strip club, and Kid Blackheart's just waving money around at strippers like, we're going to stay here for a little bit, that type of thing. So with Master Pandemonium's with him, and he's kind of like just passed out drunk. And so it has a happy ending where the Ghost Riders, Blaze and Ketch, are basically the only two Ghost Riders on Earth now. And they both still have the power of the Ghost Rider, and they're both kind of they're both content, and they're kind of friendly towards each other. They've forgiven each other, and them and Sister Sarah ride off into the sunset, and that would be it. Now we haven't seen Danny Ketch, as far as I know, up to like from then to this modern day here today. We haven't seen Danny Ketch appear anymore in comics. Ghost Rider Johnny Blaze will get another series after this, and we'll go over that series when the time comes. And I'm not even sure if Sister Sarah shows up anymore. I was wrong about Dan Ketch. He will show up, but kind of in a weird way later on. But nothing of any real significance. So for all intents and purposes, in the Marvel comic universe, Johnny Blaze is the only Ghost Rider now, or it seems to be the only Ghost Rider that they seem to acknowledge or care about, and give him his own one shot every now and then, or make him part of a group, or give him a series. This run by Jason Aaron, as I said, is fantastic. The third series on a whole is fantastic. So, if you are somebody who wants to get into Ghost Rider, I have to stress this though. As tempting as it may be for you to hear that this series is all really good and want to get it first, you benefit more from this series if you have read the past series. Series 1 and Series 2, because there's so much fan service to you in this series that it makes the experience 10 times better. I mean, sure, you could not have any idea or inkling or never read a prior series Ghost Rider comic book and come into this series and, you know, get the gist of everything. But this this series, you get a whole much more benefit if you had read the prior ones, because it ties a lot of things up. It gives you a lot of fan service. It brings back a lot of obscure or, you know, forgotten people and characters from the other series, and it acknowledges them, and it's good to see that. So I would recommend that if you become of course, if you're a diehard collector and got to get everything, of course, get this whole series. But I would recommend that if you are looking to get into the Ghost Rider series, that try not to get this series until you get and have read the first and second Ghost Rider series. As great as this series is, I mean, or key storylines from the first two series, because as great as this series is, and I highly recommend it. This was a like I said in my other video, this was a surprise how good this series turned out, and it's a shame that this series ended as soon as it did. I mean, oh man, I guess they wanted to end it on a high note and not have to worry about, you know, Aaron's leaving, a new rider's going to come on board. Is it really going to go to crap now? So they ended it on a high note and set up to where if somebody else wanted to come and do a series, they could just take the reins, and the continuity's kind of been straightened up, and you can take the reins and do something with it. But I would recommend, especially Aaron's run, Jason Aaron's run. You don't even need to get Daniel Way's run. All you need to know about Daniel Way's run is, you know, Johnny Blaze is freed from hell, and it turns out that an angel, Zagadel, was responsible the whole time for him being Ghost Rider. That's all you really need to know. If you wanted to, you get Aaron's run before you get Daniel Way's run on the book. But I would definitely, this is a must-have for any true fan of Ghost Rider. This is a must-have series. But if you're a collector or you want to get into it, don't read it until after you've read, you know, some of the first and some of the second series, because you will get much more enjoyment out of this series if you don't know what's coming. And you know, I know I spoil things, tell you the gist of the storyline, but there are a lot of little things. There's a lot of little things I leave out, so if you read it, you'll get your own kick out of it. And that's true for all these Ghost Rider videos. Third series, man, I was sad to see this series end. I really was. This was great. This was back a return to form, and it reached heights that Ghost Rider has not seen since, and that's a shame, because this character has so much potential, and Aaron's run shows you that this character, the whole mythology of the Ghost Rider, has so much potential. You can do so much with it, because he did do a lot with it. So that is my critique of the Ghost Rider third series, and what a great one it was. I get sentimental just thinking about it. But I'll see you next time when we return, and we're going to be critiquing the fourth Ghost Rider series. So I hope you enjoyed this. Until then, have fun.